I need you to hide your kids and hide your wife because the Chicago Bears are trying to steal from your Denver Broncos, and we just can't stand for it. We get another mock draft, which proves the national media didn't learn their lesson last offseason, and they're just having ChatGPT do their work without knowing anything about this team or what it needs. We got to break some holes, punch some holes, poke some holes in that mock draft. That and way more in this video. If you're new to the channel, I'm a diehard Denver Broncos fan named Ben. Helps me in the YouTube algorithm out a ton if you would smash that like and subscribe button. We know one of the biggest bummers of this entire offseason was the fact that we had an assistant GM, Darren Moogie, who was snatched off of this team and was hired as the GM of the New York Jets. And that was such a bummer because all season long, he's already been doing the biggest part of his job, which is starting to scout for our draft, which happens in just a couple of months. So we paid him for like a year of work leading up to the thing that happens just right around the corner. And he's going to be able to do that job for the New York Jets with the information that he learned sitting right next to George Payton and scouting together. So that was a bummer. But in the back of our minds, we're all like, well, hey, but remember that sneaky thing the Broncos did? They hired David Shaw. And most NFL fans don't even remember that David Shaw works for the Denver Broncos in a very similar role. Like his job is to scout college football and scout the NFL and find talent that matches the Sean Payton system. So it wasn't that big of a bummer losing Moogie because we knew we had David Shaw waiting in the wings. Well, the Chicago Bears are trying to do something about that, and we got to stop them, y'all. I don't know how, but let me know in the comments, how could we stop them? Maybe we could start like a coordinated misinformation campaign and just say like, just make up lies about David Shaw and see if it stops them. Like, let's try it. Like David Shaw actually was very pro-COVID. Like he liked it. Okay, let's dive into the real news here. So David Shaw, incredible evaluator of talent. The fact that he was able to get talent to Stanford that met the academic criteria and the GPA criteria, that is a wild, small like hole that he had to thread that needle, and he's just wildly talented. So the Chicago Bears want David Shaw to come be Ben Johnson's offensive coordinator. That would be a massive bummer for us here in Denver, again, because we've been paying David Shaw all season long, leading up to free agency, leading up to the draft, and that's where we're going to see the fruit of what he's been doing this offseason. So hopefully we don't lose him, but if the Chicago Bears go a different direction and don't give that offensive coordinator position to David Shaw, it's going to be another piece of Denver Broncos talent because the other person they're bringing in for interviews is the Broncos tight end coach, Declan Doyle. So either way, it looks like a Denver Broncos coach is going to end up going over and coaching Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. So I guess you could look at this like optimistically and say that all that talk about Sean Payton being washed up or not translating to today's NFL is really just like a bunch of malarkey because, you know, we have multiple people on the Sean Payton tree that every single place in the NFL is trying to snatch up. So whether that's David Shaw, whether that's Chris Banjo, whether that's Webb, you could go Darren Moogie, all these guys that Sean Payton has brought in that the rest of the league wants. Obviously, it's hard to complain when you look at what's happening to the Detroit Lions, and it's like all of their coaches are getting snatched up. So I'm going to try to be optimistic about it, but it is a bummer to have guys you liked here, guys who had done a great job, then get snatched up elsewhere. If I'm choosing between Doyle or Shaw, I would love it if it's Doyle. The Broncos tight end room has been nothing to write home about over the past couple seasons, and so you'd be like, hey, if you're going to choose between those dudes, Doyle is your guy. So that'll be interesting to see there. Other pieces of Broncos talent who are getting looked at across the league. Chris Banjo is also being looked at by the Dallas Cowboys to be their special teams coordinator. And if it's not, if he does not end up going to the Cowboys, there's also rumors that the Jets would be interviewing him as well. So you're looking at Broncos losing at least 4 guys this offseason. And so that is a bummer. Major props to Sean Payton for how he has built this room for sure. The thing that I definitely do not want to happen is Davis Webb. Like, let's keep him in Denver as long as we can. We've heard how much he means to Bo Nix. Even last year, we heard how much he meant to Russell Wilson. And that he definitely will be an offensive coordinator and probably a head coach at some point. And so let's just hope that this rumor here that the New York Giants will not indeed go out and try to get Davis Webb. We can keep hoping. We'll keep you all updated here. Moving on to mock draft news. It is getting close to mock draft season where all these NFL analysts come out and try to predict what they think is going to happen in the mock draft. If you take a look historically, these guys are very inaccurate. Like, we're talking Justin Fields level inaccurate. here for these insiders. I think the highest insider last year picked 12 of the 32 picks correctly, and that's probably a pretty good rate for them. So the first one came out here. This is Daniel Jeremiah, and he has the Denver Broncos at the 20th pick, picking, of all positions, a safety. And so that he has us getting a safety out of South Carolina. Now, this dude is an absolute beast. If you take a look at some of his physicality, it's just absolutely wild to see that he's got 42-inch vertical, 24 reps on the bench. Like, that's a lot of reps on the bench. But, and that he hit 23 miles an hour running, and he weighs 230 pounds. So, absolutely wild. Like, his RAS score would be off the chart there. And the reason I got a massive problem with this pick is that the Broncos don't really have that big of a need at safety, in my opinion. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong there. Like, I think Brandon Jones stepped in very adequately for Justin Simmons, and PJ Locke, while he had some struggles there towards the end of the season, he's a hardworking dude, and I would much rather, if we're going to replace him in late rounds, not using the first round draft pick on a safety. But let me know. I think if you take a look at the Broncos' biggest need, it is the tight end room. And if you take a look here at some of these advanced analytics, Broncos have one of the worst tight end rooms in all of football, and we're talking about 2 years in a row of that. And the fact that the Chicago Bears are interviewing our tight end coach shows that, if he's good enough to get an interview for it, like, it shows the talent there is really, really bad, that it's not a coaching problem. It's truly a talent problem. And so if you take a look at this, when it comes to total times we targeted our tight ends, we're almost the worst in the league. Total receptions by tight ends, almost the worst in the league. This is good that when we targeted our tight ends, they actually caught it 22nd in the league. And then reception yards, we were 30th in the league. And then receptions on first down, we were dead last. And so I think this is the place that the Broncos are going to be targeting a tight end in this year's draft, because we just know how important that position is to Sean Payton, coaching Jeremy Shockey, coaching Jimmy Graham, coaching Dan Campbell. Like, he's always had great tight ends. And if you take a look, he's had 4 all-pro seasons out of 3 different tight ends. And that means, like, 4 times in his career, he had the best tight end in football. And so we know Sean Payton can get the most out of that room if he has the talent. And the fact that we are one of the worst in the league just shows me that, like, that is a huge area of need. So looking back at Daniel Jeremiah's draft there, I think the pick for the Broncos to do in this situation is to not let Colston Loveland fall to 22 to go back and reunite with Jim Harbaugh. But instead, if Colston Loveland is still on the board, at 20, I think you cannot pass on that. I think the biggest hope for all of us in Broncos country is that this mock draft has the New York Jets taking Tyler Warren out of Penn State at 7. Somehow, in some world, it would be amazing if somehow he could fall to us at 20, or that the Broncos package some picks and go up and get him, because I think he is a difference maker. But either way, I want to leave that first round of the draft with a top-end running back or a top-end tight end. Let me know in the comments what you hope for. And Broncos country, we got a ton to believe in.